Over the last year and a half, the credibility of the World Health Organization has been called into question repeatedly. It's the same thing with Dr. Anthony Fauci, after a trove of emails came out that suggests that he knew more about the origins of the coronavirus in the early days of the pandemic than he told the American people and the rest of the world. And the question remains this morning, who knew what and when, and where did COVID-19 come from? For more on all of this, joining us now is Jamie Wetzel, a member of the World Health Organization's Advisory Committee. Jamie, good morning. Nice to have you on the show.
Hey, Rob. Happy to be here.
Jamie, why is it so important that we get to the bottom of where this virus came from, and why don't we have that answer already?
Two really important questions. The first is there's a reason why when a plane crashes, we do everything we can to figure out what happened and how, because we need to have that information to fix our biggest problems. If we want to prioritize our efforts to prevent the next pandemic, it's critically important that we understand how this one started.
Let me just stop you quickly. If you mind if I interrupt. I understand the airplane analogy. I did see you on 60 Minutes on Sunday. The problem is when a plane is going down, so fine, after a plane crashes, the NTSB steps in and they do an investigation. But while the plane is going down, the pilot and the co-pilot, they are desperately trying to figure out how to save that plane. That's coronavirus over the last year and a half. So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, no, and it's a critically important question. So one, in the earliest days of the pandemic, if we knew what we were facing, that certainly would have helped us with our response. It will even help us now. But just imagine, there are, as you know, Rob, there are two very credible hypotheses at this point. One is there was a natural spillover in the wild, and one, an accidental lab incident. If we knew, just hypothetically, that this absolutely started with a lab incident, that would put a lot of pressure on us to look at the regulation of these almost 60 highest level virology institutes spread around the world, which are doing a lot of experimentation that is dangerous. It may be a lot of it may be necessary, but it's dangerous, and it's regulated differently in different places. So let me then get to your second question of why don't we know? The biggest reason we don't know how this pandemic started is because from day one, China has been engaged in a massive cover-up involving destroying samples, hiding records, imprisoning citizen journalists, and it's established and is still enforcing the universal gag order on Chinese scientists.
Jamie, why do you use the word accidental to describe a lab leak? How do we know it was accidental?
We don't know. It's just that there have been some people have alleged that China was working on some kind of bioweapon and released it. It would be such an inefficient way to do things.
Well, so I do understand what you're saying. I just think that saying accidental, I think that further perpetuates the issue we've had over the last 16 months, and that's misinformation. We don't know if it was accidental. If it was deliberate, that's why we need this investigation. I want to talk about the World Health Organization specifically.
Let me stop you there. I have been perhaps the world's leading advocate for getting to the bottom of this. I was the one who raised with a small number of others, the possibility of a lab incident origin early last year. So nobody knows that we need an investigation, that we need to fully look into the lab incident origin more than I do.
Well, then let me ask you about that, because you've got a big voice at the WHO. And my question is, how can we believe anything at this point from the World Health Organization after that, what really was a sham 2-week, as you called it, study tour that was led by the Chinese, and that report still came out, and the report in March concluded that this came zoonotic, that it came from an animal.
Yeah, again, Rob, I was the leading international voice calling that entire process and the report a total sham. It was shockingly incomplete and frankly insulting. But we also need to be clear who the entity was who carried out that study mission. People call it a WHO investigation, but it wasn't an investigation, and it wasn't carried out by the WHO. It was a joint committee by an independent expert committee that the WHO helped organize but didn't control, and their Chinese government counterparts. And that process was a total sham, which is why I and others have been calling for a full investigation with complete access to all the relevant record samples and personnel. And China, to this day, is denying that, and that's putting everyone at risk.
If they continue to stonewall us with regard to this investigation, what do we do after that? What next?
So one is, if we can't give China a veto over whether or not we investigate this pandemic. If they continue to block access, we need to come together with our allies and partners around the world and establish a parallel investigation process and get to the bottom of things. If through that process China continues to stonewall, I think we should see that as at least a partial admission of guilt and respond accordingly. We need to give China an opportunity to cooperate. They've shown no willingness to do so.
Well, I think, Jamie, if they don't allow an investigation, that's an admission of guilt. I don't think it's a partial admission of guilt. Again, I notice you're very careful with the language. If they have nothing to hide, then they have nothing to hide. It's black and white. It's not gray. Question for you about the WHO. How does Dr. Tedros, who's been leading the World Health Organization since 2017, he was backed by China. The CCP supported that appointment in 2017. At this point, shouldn't somebody else be running an organization whose integrity has been called into question a lot over the last year and a half, referring to Dr. Tedros specifically?
Yeah, so let me talk about Dr. Tedros. Dr. Tedros, by his own admission, and I certainly agree with this, got things pretty wrong in the earliest days of the pandemic. The WHO should have been much more vocal in challenging the information that was being provided by China and in raising the alarm a little bit earlier. But we also need to know that the WHO is an organization controlled by states working under its mandate. And so they don't have the authority to have their own global surveillance mechanism. They were trying to get their early response teams into Wuhan for over 3 weeks before they were granted visas.
So I understand they don't have their own, I heard you say this, they don't have their own surveillance capabilities. Look, any company, every organization, big or small, has got some sort of self-policing. How could you operate successfully if you didn't have that?
This is not about self-policing. It's about what are you mandated to do? So this is an organization with a mandate that the states have told it what it can and can't do. But then on the issue of Tedros, you talked about this sham report. Tedros, the day in the ceremony when that report was released, Tedros did something incredible. He basically rejected the entire report. He said this is insufficient. We need a full investigation. And he called on states and others to authorize that investigation. So I think it's too easy to beat up on the WHO. That doesn't mean the WHO is perfect, but that's why the states, led by the United States, we need to demand a full investigation.
Donald Trump, former President Trump, defunded the WHO, Dr. Tedros, and I understand the point you just made, but he still allowed that sham report to be published in March. And what did that do? That further perpetuated this myth of the zoonotic origin for coronavirus.
That's just incorrect. I'm sorry, Rob. He didn't allow it. It was an independent committee with their Chinese government
counterparts. But if he knew that China was holding your hands through the investigation, he could have said, whoa, 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 hold on. The buck stops with Tedros. He could have said, wait a second. We can't put this information out to the world. He didn't do that. I feel like Tedros running WHO would be like if we pulled the Titanic up from the bottom of the sea and let Captain Smith take it back to New York. I feel like that's what Tedros running the WHO right now is like.
Yeah, Rob, that's just wrong. Look at the record. I invite you and your viewers to go to my JamieWetzel.com website. Judge for yourself, but Tedros is actually a hero of this story. The problem is there was a terrible, while the United States was essentially
I would be careful with the word hero. History will judge that word harshly. I'm not certain that Dr. Tedros is going to be looked at as a hero when it comes to the coronavirus. This is somebody that has supported oppressive regimes in Africa. The Chinese government supported him when he was appointed to run the World Health Organization. I'm not certain that he's a hero. Millions of people have died worldwide. And it was the World Health Organization on January 14th that put out a tweet. I think we have that tweet right now. There's no evidence of human-to-human transmission with coronavirus. There's the tweet. That misinformation costs lives, and then it was only on March 11th that you declared it a pandemic. That's a lot of misinformation. So there are a lot of unanswered questions.
No, so let's just say we're talking about misinformation. That is what you just showed. That is misinformation. How much information was spread by President Trump? There was a lot of information. We need to look at all of it and hold people accountable for it. And certainly Tedros has expressed his regret at some of those early statements. But I will reiterate, Tedros was a hero of this later stage of the process because this report that was mandated, he didn't call on this report. He then rejected it and called for a full investigation. And that's been a rallying cry of people trying to get to the bottom of this all around the world.
Jamie Wetzel, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.